Welcome to another episode of Real Estate, Real Life, Real Talk, and Real Live with your host, myself, Damon the Agent. I thank you all for joining me for episode 111 every Friday at 12 noon, where I come with you with the latest real estate trends and topics. I also do my Q&A, which is my questions and answers. And then I also tend to answer any questions that anyone may have. And then I also do a topic of the day. So basically, what I am doing is I am going through and I'm checking something right now. I hope all of you all are staying cool. It's been quite warm these past couple of weeks. In the month of July. July and August are the hottest month of the years. But as always, let me begin my real estate topic. So today I'm going to talk about breach of contract. Okay, in many cases, in real estate, you may have a buyer who may breach the contract, and in some cases, you even have sellers who breach contracts. And what I basically wanted to just explain about that is that, when it pertains to breaching of the contract, who's held reliable and who can kind of push the envelope a little bit to get what they want. Now, here's the thing. You have many buyers who may be under contract. Sometimes they walk away. If they have contingencies in their contract and they're within their contingency right, they have the right to walk away from contracts because that is the reason why the contingencies are put in the contract in the first place, to protect the buyers. In some instances, there are no contingencies. And where there are no contingencies, if a buyer typically walks away, then the buyer is at breach of contract. Because in many cases, a seller takes their house off the market and they could have potentially had another buyer, but they happen to choose that particular buyer's offer. And because of that, they've lost revenue with basically choosing another offer. The longer your house sits on the market, the less value that it is. So buyers, tend to have that effect with some sellers when it pertains to selling their property, excuse me, and they are at breach of contract. Now, in the state of Maryland, Maryland law does not allow a seller to force a breaching buyer to buy the property. A seller cannot make a buyer buy through an action for specific performance, which is a court order action that calls for a contractual duty to be carried out in cases where damages would not be an adequate remedy. Basically, sellers can't force a buyer to buy. You have buyers that walk away. Now, here's the thing, though. Sellers can tie up um, a buyer's earnest money deposit. When buyers initially make an offer, they do an EMD, which means earnest money deposit. And when they do the EMD, they're basically the buyers is putting down a deposit, which typically goes towards their down payment of their loan, but they're doing it up front to show good faith on their part to the sellers. Now, the more that they put down, the more that the sellers could possibly take that money if the buyers do not go through with the whole deal. Now, in some cases, you can buyers and seller come to a mutual agreement, and sometimes they may split the EMD, or in very few cases, buyers just give it up. But if they don't, then arbitration has to take place with that because of breach of contract. But that is one of the reasons why a huge EMD is required or preferred by sellers in the beginning, because they don't want the buyers to walk away, which would be a breach of contract, especially if they're outside of their contingencies. Now, on the flip side, let's say hypothetically, a seller decides that they do not want to sell their house anymore, because that has happened many times. Sellers have gone through with the whole process, and then some sellers at the very last minute had decided, oh, well, we don't want to sell our property. Now, if that's really the case, it's nothing a buyer can do either, because if a seller chooses not to sell their property, even though the buyer did a home inspection, even though the buyer paid for an appraisal, if they decide that they just don't want to sell their properties anymore, again, in many cases, that seller is in breach of contract as well, too. Now, you can always take a buyer and a seller can always take each other to court to get for the compensation, the lost revenue, the time that's been lost, all of those things. But, it's kind of hard and everything, because like in that situation, seller, things come up. I remember many years ago, there was a seller who was intentionally going to sell their house because they were actually getting a new job in another state. And then for some reason, the job didn't go through at the last minute. So because it did not go through at the last minute, they say, I'm not moving. They changed their mind. Of course, the buyers were upset because they wasted their money with the home inspection, with the appraisal, only to find out that they couldn't buy that particular house. But it comes to either a legal situation where, depending on buyers or seller, if they want to go through the process of arbitration, and then the EMD, the money is tied up most of the time, because most of the times the earnest money deposit on that particular contract has to be released by both parties. So when the money is tied up, then a lot of times you can't move on to another property because of, or another buyer, because the money is tied up and it's still caught up. So there are certain legal ramifications that are pertaining to real estate that some people don't even know about, because all people know is about buying a house or selling a house, but they don't understand there's a lot of laws that are involved when you're buying or selling. And breach of contract is one. You have it done more so from buyers than you do sellers. You have buyers who don't always go to the finish lines and close, even though they should, because a contract is a legally binding agreement between a buyer and a seller, and both parties can, and in some cases, go to court if the agreements are not met pertaining to the terms of the contract. It happens all the time. But I just want to share that with you, that if you are a buyer, please be 100% into buying that particular property and wanting to go through, because you can be sued if you don't go through. Now, if you are a seller, please be 1,000% sure that you want to sell that property, because if a buyer makes an offer on your particular property and you decide at the last moment you don't want to go through, guess what? You can be sued. We live in a society, in a country, it's a sue society, whether you'll realize it or not, where people will get in a fist fight with somebody and then want to sue and say assault when they were the ones who started it. You got people who drive on the road and they will cut you off, slam on their brake, you bump into the back of them, and they're going to sue you, even though they're wrong. That's the country that we live in. That's the society that we live in. We live in a sue society. So you have to be very careful and mindful of everything that you do a lot of times, because you have people who want to have an easy life. They just want to get a whole bunch of money. They don't want to work. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, they're looking for ways to do that. And in real estate, it happens as well too. People sue. There's a big transaction with real estate. There's a lot of money involved with real estate, and there are people who are trying to buy or sell. And when the other party does not commit based off the terms of the contract, it creates a problem. It is a breach of contract if there are no contingencies in place to protect the buyer. And it's a breach of contract if the sellers do not go through what they signed and agreed upon that's in the contract. So please take this into understanding, because there are some legal ramifications that you can take. It's always best to speak with a real estate attorney if you ever decide to go that route. But in the meantime, I always like to tell people to go by the terms of the contract, and also to basically do what you said you was going to do, plain and simple. All right. Okay. Hold on for 1 second. I'll be right back. All right, my next segment is Q&A, which basically means questions and answers, in which people send me a lot of questions when it pertains to real estate, and I tend to answer them. So I also like to answer. Hold on for 1 second. I'm sorry. I also like to answer them because of the fact is, many times the questions that I answer, many other people have those same questions. So I tend to like to make sure that that's why I created one of the reasons, because I've gotten 1,000 questions before. So today's question is, who decides if a community will have an HOA? Who decides whether a community will have an HOA? That's a great question. Normally, who decides that is developers and builders when houses are first built. If you will notice that in many situations, there are townhouses that are being built, especially in this area now. There are more townhouses than single family homes, because most builders and developers can milk more of that space to get more money. So because of that, let's say hypothetically, if they own a space where they can get a $900,000 home that they can sell, they can put three on that same spot. They can sell those, let's say for 650 or 600,000, get three. Guess what? That's double than what they could have got for just that one home. So that's why a lot of townhouses are going up. But the developers and builders decided it is written into the purchase contract in the beginning. Okay. However, any neighborhood can create an HOA if they want, but it cannot be forced to anyone already living in the community or that's joining the community. So those are for the properties that are already built and don't have an HOA. You can create it, but you can't force people who that it wasn't written into the contract because it wasn't written into their agreement when they purchased the home. So you can't make it mandatory for them. But you can develop it if you're in a neighborhood and you feel like it's mandatory or necessary. But the developers are the ones who determine an HOA in the community. That's a good question. Let me see if I have any more questions. Hold on, let me check my social media platforms. All right, y'all. Let me go to. Hold on. Okay. I think I got another question that just came through. Hold on. How long does it take for an appraisal to come back? The question is, how long does it take for an appraisal to come back? That varies. That's a good question. Once an appraisal is done, an appraisal can typically come back anywhere from 48 hours up to a week. The reason being is, first of all, it depends on how busy that appraiser is with maybe doing other appraisers, and then appraisals, and then also, the appraiser is gathering information and calculating the true value of the property. So a lot of times that's not like to be rushed. So it takes anywhere from 48 hours up to a week in most cases, but it varies. Okay. And it always varies. It shouldn't typically take more than, I would say, 2 weeks to come back. Um, if it takes more than 2 weeks to come back, I will always get in contact with the lender because the lenders are the ones who send the request out for an appraisal to be done. But it takes anywhere from 48 hours up to 1 week for an appraisal to come back in most cases. Okay. I think I got one more question right here. Hold on. This question is, when purchasing a home, can you request the previous seller's electric bills? When purchasing a home, can you request the previous seller electric bill? I basically think that just basically means that how much was the utilities um, in the house. Yes, you can request anything in real estate. Whether people are going to provide it or not, that's another question. But in most cases, something is how much was the average utility bills or average electric bill. I'm pretty sure most sellers will be willing to provide that basically because they want to sell their home. So yes, you can definitely request that. Um, you can request anything in real estate. Just put it in writing. Whether you get certain things or not, that's always to be determined. But yes, you can request the utility bills from the previous seller when you're purchasing a home. All right, let me see if I have any more questions. Okay, my last question is the payoff usually is the payoff usually substantially more than the mortgage statement given to the seller? Is the payoff usually substantially more than the payoff given to the seller? Okay, basically that means when most homeowners get a statement in the mail or they get it via email. There's a balance on the mortgage of that particular property. When a seller is selling a home, there's a payoff that's ordered, which normally is more than the balance that the seller is actually seeing. Is it substantially more? That's going to be determined on the balance of the mortgage. It's not substantially more, but it is more, and it depends on what you consider substantially more. Let's say hypothetically, if a homeowner mortgage balance was like 188,000, the payoff may be like 191,000. So that's a couple of $1,000 more than the actual statement. So is that substantially more? It depends. For some people, it is. For some people, that's not. So, but yes, it's more. The payoff is always more than what the mortgage statement that is sent to the homeowner. The payoff is always more than the mortgage statement sent to the homeowner. It's great questions, everyone. All right, I'll be right back with my topic of the day. All right, my topic of today is called abusive relationships. All right, I picked this topic for many reasons. Many reasons. First of all, I saw a video yesterday on TikTok. It was about domestic violence. It was saying anyone who needed any help to please reach out, call a number. It's a 1-800 number. But I just starting to see way too many women being abused, too many guys acting like punks, hitting on women, in some cases using guns, killing women, all because a lot of men can't control their emotions. A lot of men don't like rejection. There have been women who've been hurt and killed for not providing their phone numbers. Ladies, I would strongly recommend it that you, if any guy ever try to talk to you, please give them your phone number. Your life is not worth a phone number. And then when you leave, block them. Plain and simple. Give them your number and then block them. Because if it's too crazy that a lot of women can't even live their lives. Can't, if they're being hit on by a guy and he gets rejected, a lot of them want to be abusive. In relationship, there's a lot of abuse going on too, because the video that I saw yesterday was a lady she was on crutches, pregnant. This guy was allegedly her boyfriend, and he was punching her like they was in a fist fight. And she was pregnant, which is crazy. And then I know someone recently who was dragged down the steps by their not their boyfriend, but by their kid's father. And I just feel like a lot of times some women need to tell the men in their life what's going on, because in that particular case, the young lady got mad because her brother found out. She didn't want her brother to find out because she knows how he acts. But here's the thing. Sometimes some of these guys act the way they do because they feel like ain't nobody in your life. You got to let some of these guys know that if something happens to you, that it may cost them their life, unfortunately. But don't put your hands on a woman. See, those same men who hit women, if somebody hit their mother, how would they feel? Or somebody hit their daughter or sister, how would they feel? And the problem is they don't take that into consideration because they got too many anger issues. They don't know how to deal with their emotions, so they want to do violence. A lot of people want to do violence because they can't control their emotions, and it's unfortunate because the emotional roller coaster goes on so much in the black community. That's why a lot of times when you go places and it's crowded with a whole bunch of black people, one or two things are going to happen these days. A fight's going to break out, or somebody's going to start shooting because people can't control their emotions. Because people got chips on their shoulder, you know what I'm saying? They on edge, they feel disrespected, they want to be known, they want attention, so all these things go on. And that's why, when it pertains to after effects of slavery, so many of my people are still dealing with it because nobody never got therapy. You didn't get therapy, your parents didn't get therapy, your grandparents didn't get therapy. So it's undealt trauma that's been passed on from generation to generation. That's why a lot of times you can see, let's say if a father's not around, but his kid act just like him. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not good, you know. And a lot of times we have to deal with these things. See, the problem is a lot of times people say, oh, I don't want to go to counseling because I don't want nobody in my business. But truth be told, people are going to be in your business when they see how you act, you know. And you're talking about going to a stranger who don't even know you, who it has to be confidential, that whatever you discuss with them cannot be shared outside of the rooms of where you're at. But people don't have the knowledge or education to even understand that. And I say that again because it's too many abusive relationships that goes on in this world. It's too many punks out there, you know, that they want to hit a woman, but they wouldn't hit a man, you know, because once they get felt with a punch from a man, oh, they're going to have second thoughts. Trust and believe. It's not the same, you know, but they feel, you know, I guess confident, you know, hitting on a woman. And I wish this, and I don't wish this sincerely, but any man that hits a woman, you deserve whatever you get. You know what I'm saying? And to be honest with you, if you hit a woman, you deserve whatever you get. And I just say that meaning like, don't touch a woman. I don't care how mad she makes you. If she makes you that mad, walk away, leave her, because that's somebody's daughter, that's somebody's sister, that's somebody's mother or grandmother, you know, or auntie or cousin or whomever. But all this violence that's going on amongst men, touching women, men killing women, because men can't deal with their feelings, that right there is a feminine trait, an emotional trait. When you can't deal with your feelings, you gotta get all angry, and then you think you impressing somebody, you know, showing how angry you get. No, you're just showing that you have an unstable mental condition. You know, that's all you're showing. You're showing something's wrong with you, you know. And that's why a lot of times they don't sympathize for black people, especially black men, because a lot of black men, you know what I'm saying, don't know how to act. A lot of black men are out of control. A lot of black men, you know, they're too emotional and too violent, and they want to touch women when they shouldn't touch women. And I just say that, and all the men who have daughters, I'm talking about grown daughters, young daughters, check up on your daughters, man. I don't care if she's grown. I don't care if your daughters don't want to speak with you. Check up on them, because sometimes these women take these abuse from men because they don't feel loved by a man in their life. And a lot of times they accept it because they think that's what they're supposed to do. And that's not what you're supposed to do. You're never supposed to take somebody touching you or hitting you or hurting you. That's not what you were created for. So men, sometimes you all got to do better. You got to check on these daughters of y'all. You know, you got to check on your sisters. You know, you got to check on these people. You know, I saw a question, and the question was, if your baby mother got beat up by her boyfriend, what would you do? My question is twofold. My answer is twofold on that. First of all, I will want to do something because she is the mother of my child. And if she's not taken care of, guess what? I'm going to have to take care. And second of all, it depends on her. If I know she's the type of person who causes problem and everything, I'll be trying to get custody of my daughter, of my child, or whoever. I'll be trying to get custody of my child if that's the case. But if she's a good mother and I know that, then yeah, I got a problem, because you touching her is similar to you touching that child indirectly. Because of the fact is, if she's not well, if she's in the hospital, if she's hurt, she can't take care of that child. Now that's a problem for you. So I don't believe in interfering in people's affairs, but indirectly it affects me. So again, you got to know your kid's mother. Now, I'm not saying it's right, but if it's a problem where she's creating it all the time, get custody of your child. And if not, then you got to deal some with that man, because he a punk for touching a woman in the first place. And you don't even need your child to even see that type of behavior, you know, because that your child could act just like that, one of the two, either the mother or that person. You understand? Because indirectly, we kids watch what we do more than what we say. So indirectly, you're creating something of what that person's going to do when they become grown, or think it's okay when they become grown. So again, when it pertains to abusive relationship, just know that it's not right for no man to touch no woman. Just know, as women, don't stay in no relationship where a man is hitting on you. I don't care if it was an accident, it was one time, or anything, because it ain't gonna never be one time, for one. And two, you know what I'm saying? That same thing that he did to you, would he do that in front of your father or your brothers? Would he hit you in front of your fathers or your brothers? Unless your father or brothers are punks, no, he won't. Trust and believe, no, he won't. So I just say that because I keep seeing too much stuff on social media where, especially young girls are in abusive relationship, or young girls can't get their phone number without being disrespected and everything. That's terrible. If a man try to holler at a female and she say no, and you got to curse her out, or you got to try to involve violence to try to convince you. What you know what I'm saying? To me, that's a little dick syndrome or something that you got, because the mere fact is, most guys, you know what I'm saying, who, ain't got them little things and stuff, they don't act like that. They move on. You know why? Because we know it's plenty of women out there that they can get. So I'm just saying, basically, your mindset and your behavior shows a lot about you. But I'm just sick and tired of all these women being abused by these punks, because that's exactly what they are. They punks. You can't convince me otherwise. They are punks. You touch a woman, you're a punk. You know what I'm saying? You're a punk. Unless she throwing punches at you, hitting you in your face and stuff like that. That's different. You always got to protect yourself. You can always stop her by putting your hand over her fist and everything, and picking her up and just throwing her to the side, or slamming her real quick or something. But that's if she's hitting you. But I'm not even condoning doing that and stuff unless it gets severe or extreme or out of hand. But the point I'm making is, in most cases, that ain't the case. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because I am aware that there are some men in relationships that they're being abused by women, and I suggest to them to get out. Get out. Just like the movie Get Out. But again, I just had to talk about this abusive relationship because it's just mind blowing to me, and I have 4 daughters, and I have to pray for them. And I've even told one of my daughters that if a guy touch you, you kick them in their nuts, and the moment they bend over, you hit them in the back of their head. And I gave her a bat, and I told him, you keep hitting them. You know what I'm saying? And I said, just understand this is either going to be you or him. So don't even be concerned about him, because you got to protect and look after you. And I say that to any other woman. Get your bats. Get y'all bats. You know what I'm saying? Get you, and I will say get a gun, but some people are too emotional and everything. Get you whatever you need to get. Dog, something. Get whatever you need to get to protect you. Because a lot of these guys out here, they gonna slip up and they gonna end up in the grave. Many of them already need to be in the grave, if you ask me. The moment you touch a woman, that should be instant death. Instant death the moment you touch a woman. That's how I feel. It's too much of that going on because people can't control their emotions, because they got anger issues, because they weak, because you're weak-minded. So, ladies, please get help. Google domestic violence hotline. If you Google domestic violence hotline, you will actually see the 1-800 number. And then if you have men in your life, fathers, brothers, uncles, tell them what's going on. Tell them. And if they the ones who can't help you, get out, go somewhere. Trust and believe. But abusive relationships shouldn't be tolerated anywhere. And that's all I'm going to say on that. So that was my topic of the day. I'm about to do a recap. If you have any questions, please always. Yes, I meant to say always follow me on all social media platforms. I am on TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Okay, follow me on all of them. And if you have any questions about real estate or anything else, please send me a message. I will definitely respond to you in a timely manner. So let me do a quick recap. My recap of today is breach contracts, y'all. Understand, when it pertains to the world of real estate, a seller or a buyer can breach the contract, and there are consequences to breaching a contract. So You just have to know your rights and whether or not the contract can be breached or not. But if contingencies are in place, 9 times out of 10, it's not a breach of contract. It's only when anything happens outside the terms of the contract that's not going about what the contract is saying, whether it's the seller or the buyer. And then my recap on abusive relationships, y'all. I'm not going to say this over and over again. I'm just sick of seeing about it. I'm sick of seeing it on social media. I'm sick of seeing people, who stay in relationships that shouldn't stay in relationships. I'm sick of seeing these punks who getting away with these things who really need to be 6 feet deep. You know, there's no place for that, especially in this world that we live in. Fathers, check on your daughters, check on your sisters, check on your mothers, especially if y'all know they got new boyfriends. If they acting funny, if anything going on, check on them. Y'all be surprised. There's so many people in abusive relationship. I sent that video that I told you yesterday to someone on Instagram about the domestic violence thing. And she told me the second video triggered her. She said because that was her when she was with her ex-husband. She said he beat the mess out of her and she was pregnant. I didn't know that, y'all. But that's bothersome to me. You know what I'm saying? You're going to hit somebody who's pregnant with your child. That's bothersome to me. That means you got so much built up anger. So you need to be boxing, MMA fighting, wrestling. You need to be doing something, getting in there where somebody can tag your head at. That's what you need to be doing. Because you should never touch a woman. Never. If she make you angry, leave. There's a million other women out here on the planet. Leave her if she make you that angry. But you should never touch a woman. And again, ladies, please take some self-defense classes, get some weapons and everything. If a man puts his hand on you, I'm going to tell you what I told my daughter. You look at his certain body parts on him while he talking and everything, where you going to attack. Make sure you hit him hard in between his legs because he's going to bend over. And when he bend over, you hit him in the back of his head. And once you hit him in the back of his head, you keep hitting him and make sure he's down. Whether you got to use a frying pan, whether you got to use a bat. And if you need to, order yourself a bat. Go on Amazon. Y'all on Amazon for everything else. Order yourself a bat. Okay? All right. I thank you all for joining me. I will see you all next Friday. Hopefully I'll be on by 12 because I do have a settlement. I just don't know what time it is. But I'll see you all next Friday. Thank you for joining me and follow me on all social media platforms. You all have a great weekend.